Okay, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about 6 questions to assess if you have reasonable needs or not. So today we're continuing our discussion of how to decide whose needs take priority in a relationship, especially when they seem irreconcilable. So today's video is part 2 of 4 on the subject. And in case you missed my last video, the first important aspect to this is understanding that conflicting needs are often the same need expressed differently. So for example, if you can give a partner space enough to let them emotionally and energetically refuel in order to feel safe in maintaining a connection with you, then they will be more willing to drop everything to just love you up when you really need it. Now, in response to this idea, I often get the question, but what if I give them an inch and then they take a mile? Another popular question is, but what if they say my needs are not reasonable? Now, these are both really good questions, and that's exactly what we're going to tackle in today's segment. Specifically, we are going to look at why it's important to clarify and prioritize our needs, how vagueness and confusion can lead to conflict and rejection, and we're also going to look at 6 self-assessment questions to help you clarify your needs and priorities today so you can start to improve your relationships immediately. And also, stop worrying about being reasonable. Right? So by the end of this video, you will feel empowered to advocate for your needs without feeling guilty or selfish. You will feel confident in your ability to prevent conflicts in a way that is respectful, considerate, and actionable. And you will be ready to take action on what you've learned through your own self-assessment and feel confident in your ability to choose more highly compatible partners. So be sure to stick with me until the end. I also recommend grabbing a pencil and paper to take notes if you'd like. And of course, comment below. I would love to see your thoughts and reflections. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Briana MacWilliam, and I'm a licensed and board-certified creative arts therapist with more than 15 years in the field helping adults struggling with insecure attachment go from self-doubting to self-sovereign so they can attract the soul-shaking relationships that they want. So let's dive into our topic for today. Let's start with why it's important to clarify and prioritize our needs. As you negotiate your conditional needs exchanges in a relationship, it's important to be aware of how each need and value is prioritized by your partner. The biggest mistake that people make is assuming that an equal balance of time and effort contributed to a specific emotional need should earn the same amount of brownie points all across the board. But the truth is, when a need or value is not respectively prioritized the same way, equivocal time and effort doesn't necessarily lead to satisfaction and harmony. So, for example, let's say that Jane likes more space and love and Tom likes more connection. Now, how high of a priority is Jane's need for space right now versus Tom's need for connection right now? Is it always at high priority for Jane? Would honoring Jane's need for space more often than not, based on its priority level for Jane, leave Tom feeling like he has unmet needs? Or is frequently connecting a low enough priority for Tom that he's willing to find that connection for shorter amounts of time as long as it's a lot deeper, or even in connecting in another way? Now, how clear are both Jane and Tom about exactly what space and connection looks like in concrete terms over the duration of one day, 1 week, how about 1 month or 1 year? Now, this is likely to be significantly impacted on the developmental stage of the relationship, or impacted by the developmental stage of the relationship. So are Jane and Tom committed in an exclusive relationship? For how long? Do they live together? Are there shared domestic responsibilities? Do they have kids? What does space actually mean to Jane? Is that at least 1 night out with the girls without Tom per week? Is it no text messaging during the workday? Is it an hour of alone time in her study every night? Maybe it's 1 week solo vacation per year. When we don't know the answers to these questions, it can cause a lot of problems and anxiety and recurring arguments, particularly for the partner that feels like they want more connection. So let's look at this next. Number 2, let's look at how vagueness and confusion can lead to conflict and rejection. Now, often it is the vagueness around the concept of taking space that actually creates anxiety for Tom in this example. Knowing the beginning and end points for these moments of separateness and when to anticipate them alleviates a lot of his anxious concern, and it makes him feel more reassured. Resenting Tom's need for this clarity and assuming it means that he's trying to control her would be a defensive position stemming from an attachment wound that likely originates in a childhood system where there were few, if any, emotional boundaries. Now, if Jane digs in her heels and refuses to offer this rather simple overture to Tom, it means that she's locked down in survival mode and not equally prioritizing Tom's need for clarity and reassurance as highly as her own need for space. Now, objectively speaking, clarity and reassurance should not impede Jane's ability to enjoy her alone time. If anything, from a secure position, it would make her feel good for being able to provide Tom what he needs while getting what she needs. And this works both ways, because there's also the vagueness of wanting connection or intimacy. But what does connection or intimacy actually mean to Tom? How does he experience that in very concrete ways? What behaviors or activities inspire this feeling? When does he feel the most connected to Jane? Is it at least 3 hours a week watching TV together? Is it reading the same books and discussing them? Is it eating dinner together every night of the week? Or does he prefer eating out twice per week? When, where, and how often should physical affection be exchanged? In what contexts? How much of these activities and type of contact would Tom need in order to give Jane the space that she needs when she needs it? And how much and at what frequency does Jane need space in order to give Tom these things, these intimacy needs, right? So you see, it's important to clarify and prioritize your needs because it helps us to ensure that both partners are getting their needs met according to their respective level of importance, which prevents recurring arguments stemming from unmet needs, right? It also allows both partners to feel secure in the relationship so that they can contribute to each other's happiness and feel more satisfied with a sense of deepening intimacy between them. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the next one. And that is, let's talk about how important it is to assess your own needs and values in love so that you can know which needs and values are of the highest priority. Because once you know that, it's easier to make healthy choices with partners that are more highly compatible with you, especially if you're interested in a longer-term commitment, okay? So this is the next point, and we're going to talk about 6 questions to determine if you have reasonable needs. Now, I use the word reasonable a bit sarcastically because needs do not acknowledge reason. However, whenever someone says to you that they think you have unreasonable needs, what they're really saying is, I don't know how to help you with that, and I'm not so sure it would be a good thing for me to try, and I'm a little too scared to find out, right? And why not? Why would they think this way? Well, there's a few reasons. Maybe it would require too much work on their part. It might mean making changes to themselves or their lifestyle that they're not actually really comfortable with. They may think that if they help you with this need, then you will become too dependent on them, and then they'll just have to do it forever. They may think that your need is actually a request for them to change who they are fundamentally as a person, and they're not willing to do that, and they shouldn't have to do that, right? They may fear that if they help you with this need, it will open up a can of worms and reveal other areas in which they themselves are lacking, which would be too painful or scary for them to face or expose. They may believe that your need is actually a sign that the relationship is not meant to be, and they would rather end it now and maintain your friendship than try to work on something romantic that is not ultimately fixable. Now, these are all valid concerns. They are, but they don't change the fact that you still have the need. So what do you do? Now, the first step is to assess your own needs and values, as we talked about, and we're going to determine which of them are the highest priority for you. Now, once you know that, it's easier to make healthy choices with partners that can meet you on that level because you're aware that, respectively, you both need and want the same things, right? Okay, so here's the first question. What are the most fulfilling aspects of a romantic relationship for me, and what are the 3 actions or behaviors that stimulate that feeling? Just 3. It's probably a lot more. Secondly, what are my most important values in a relationship, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how willing am I to compromise on those? Number 3, what kind of lifestyle do I want to have, and how do I imagine the structural, routine, day-to-day happenings of building a life with someone long-term? Number 4, how much time and energy am I willing to invest in a relationship? How much togetherness, sex, cuddling, shared activities, intimate conversations, romantic dinners and vacations, family time, and maybe even couples therapy am I willing to invest in order to have a healthy relationship in my life? Number 5, what kind of love language or communication style do I prefer, and how does my current partner match that? How long and how well will that satisfy me? And number 6, how much change am I willing to make for a relationship? Human beings are not robots. We all change and grow over time. And are you going to be able to let that relationship change? Are you going to be able to grow alongside your partner even if it's difficult at times? Or do you wish that things are always going to remain the same, just as they are right now? So these are 6 questions for you to play with. But you may find yourself coming up with your own questions. And of course, I would invite you to share those with me here on the feed. Now, no matter how you assess compatibility, it's important to remember that nobody is perfect. Everyone has their own set of needs and values, and no one is going to be 100% compatible with you all the time. The most important thing is to find someone who meets most of your needs and values and with whom you are compatible with in the most important areas. Now, with that, I believe that you can have a secure, happy, healthy, and passionate relationship. Now, I do have some final thoughts on this. The balance of needs exchanges are determined from moment to moment and objectively over time. Now, overall, the best rule of thumb is to assume an attitude of generosity, but not necessarily self-sacrifice. You will have a sense of feeling satisfied or unsatisfied, and that is when you know you have to pipe up and recalibrate that scale. Now, if a partner is honoring your needs as much as their own, they will care. They will care that you're unhappy, and they will want to join you in a co-creative process of recalibrating that scale with you. They will want to contribute to your happiness. And it's also important to realize that sometimes discovering that your needs really are irreconcilable and deciding to break up because of it, guess what? That is evidence of a partner that is valuing your needs as highly as their own, because maybe they know that your needs could never be met with them. And it really is better for you both to move on. And it doesn't mean that there's any loss of love. These are sometimes very painful breakups because of it. Now, if you're thinking, oh, but if only they could change that one little thing to make me happy, then everything would be all right. And maybe this partner is vehement about not changing that one little thing. It's likely to be a sticking point of high priority for them, even if it seems minuscule to you. And so changing it within their subjective experience would mean that they are valuing your needs above their own, and eventually that will lead to a pattern of toxic self-abandonment, resentment, and dysfunction. Okay. Now, lastly, if they are completely unwilling to engage in a co-creative exploration or process of discovering if your needs really are negotiable or not, then I'm sorry, they're really not a compatible match for what you want, at least not anymore. Now, maybe your desires have changed or deepened since the beginning, and you don't need to apologize for that, but you do need to be honest about it if you're ever going to get what you really want. And perhaps that is not with the existing partner, and maybe it is. Timing is an important factor in this process because sometimes we experience intense needs and struggles with very loose boundaries at an inappropriate stage of the relationship. And if you're interested in learning more about how to clarify those needs and determine how highly you should prioritize them, then I do invite you to check out the link in the caption of this video for coming to my free private training on Healing Hungry Love, which is an introductory training to my live group coaching program. So I hope that you check it out. And also you can select a link to receive reminders for this video series. We will release the next video tomorrow at the same time, same place. And I look forward to seeing you there.